Hi guys, this is my run on DFFOO Global 6 Warrior Quest Area 2. This run is going to be a 3-turn run featuring the Cid Highwind Blitzkrieg strategy, and it's also going to be a no boss turn run beyond the threshold attack that Dullahan does at 79%, which won't do anything anyway because of the Raijin LD call. Since there are 6 characters here that you need to set up, I'll cover a bit on the party setup before going into the actual battle itself. As always, I will also be including a timestamp in the video description and more details about the setup as well that you can check out. So in terms of party 1, the setup that I have is Cid Highwind himself, Laguna and Lunafreya. Cid Highwind is the linchpin of the party, so you do need him as fully built as possible, which includes an ultimate weapon and blue high armor. I do have him at force level 20. The higher the force level the better, but I wanted to try to save on some force materials, so force level 20 it is. And he has a Prishe LD call equipped. The Prishe LD call is unfortunately quite mandatory, otherwise his EX damage will significantly plummet without that call ability. The second party member here is Laguna, and his role is also quite important, mainly for the Desperado debuff. The Desperado debuff is there to help you push damage at the start to bring Dullahan to 79%, because you do need Dullahan to hit that threshold before you start your force time. Beyond that, the Desperado is also there to add some chip damage during your force time, especially when Cid is doing his EX, because at that point in time you'll be getting a 800% force bonus, so the Desperado will deal tremendous amounts of damage. If you don't have Laguna, I think the only other character that could potentially be swapped with is Size, but with Size you may need to adjust the damage a little bit, because her trap will also trigger when you are supercharging the force time later on, and you'll see that later in the battle. The call ability on Laguna is optional. I gave the Kurasame call really only just for the debuff, but overall this entire party, or 2 parties I should say, has a lot of debuffs going on already, so you can't actually fit in all the debuffs on hindsight, so some of the debuff calls are really optional, other than the Raijin LD call, and I'll cover that later on. The Lunafreya's role, third party member, is only there to enable the quick and heavy prayer on Cid Highwind, so that he can do 3 EX in a row later on. But importantly, her secondary role is to charge the force gauge, force timer gauge, and the summon meter itself. I gave her the Cid Reigns LD call. You might be wondering why Cid Reigns, because both bosses are actually immune to launch. Well, the only reason for her call ability is the turn manipulation, because I do need to pull Laguna's turn back at the start of the fight. So the alternative to Cid Reigns' call would be the Onion Knight call, and either is fine. For party 2, I have Sherlotta, Iroha, and Auron. Sherlotta's role is there only to have the 5-turn Supercharger and to use the Cyan LD call at the start of the fight to enable some additional damage to help push Dullahan to 79%. Besides Sherlotta, you can use any other character with supercharging skills, for example Braska or Kraus S1, or maybe even Penelo herself. Any of them should work, so you don't have to use Sherlotta there. Iroha's role is the FR setter, and there's only 2 characters currently that you can use for this strategy. First is Iroha, and she's the best. Second is Ursula. Ursula's FR can work, but the issue with her FR is that it is instant turned. So if you're using Ursula's FR, you will lose 1 turn of supercharge, and this equates to lesser damage coming from Cid Highwind later on. So if you have Iroha FR, she is best for the role. I gave Iroha the Ashe LD call just for the Holy Enchant, so that her FR ability will be able to freeze the enemy's force gauge. That being said, the call ability on Iroha is really optional. In fact, in my run I didn't even use the Ashe LD call, so if you don't have Ashe LD call, just give anything else virtually, or don't even bother the call ability there, it's not needed. Finally, with Auron, I gave him the Raijin LD call, and the Raijin LD call is really mandatory. That's because at 79%, Dullahan will trigger debuffs on the entire player party, and the Raijin LD call helps you to mitigate those debuffs. If you don't have Raijin LD call, one other option maybe is to give Laguna a Lena base call and have him use the Lena base call instead to provide 4 turns of debuff evasion. That should work as well. Or why Auron? Auron is there also really only to use the Raijin LD call, and I use Auron for that job because Auron also gets 1 free turn at the start that you can use his LD ability to land his LD debuff. His LD debuff is pretty good because it's a 30% HP damage up. So right at the start of the fight, if you use Auron plus Raijin LD call, you will add a whopping 50% boost to HP damage, and that helps you to really push damage through to bring Dullahan to 79%. Lastly, in terms of summon, you have to use Bahamut Summon to enable Cid Highwind to have 3 EX in a row. So that's it for the setup. I'll see you guys at the battle. Alright, so starting off, the turn order that you need is Laguna followed by Lunafreya followed by Cid Highwind. And unfortunately this means that Laguna does need to take 1 turn at the start to set up his Desperado. I did try a 2-turn run by having Laguna set up Desperado later, and I think it is actually possible to convert this into a 2-turn run instead, but it is much tighter since you won't be benefiting from Desperado from the start of the fight, and like I said, you do need to push Dullahan to 79% before you start force time. Anyway, so once Desperado is up, Lunafreya will take her turn, and as you can see, I immediately swap her out for Auron, and just so that I can quickly set up the Raijin LD call. Because Auron also has a free turn at the start, I get the ability to use his LD without increasing the turn count, and that applies his LD debuff. Using 1 turn will also then enable me to switch Auron back to Lunafreya right at the start of the fight as so. Now that all the debuffs has been set, Lunafreya's whole turn order here will be used to set up the prayer buff on Cid Highwind. I do also set up some buffs on Laguna himself, but that's really not as important because Laguna's main job has been done. Before starting her rotation, I do also use the Cid call, or Cid Rain's call I should say, so that I can pull Laguna's turn back after Lunafreya. For the rest of Lunafreya's turn here, I'll increase the speed a little bit more because essentially she'll be doing roughly the same thing over and over again. With Lunafreya's 4 LD, the first 2 LD is used mainly to do as much damage as possible to Dullahan, so the key thing is to make sure that you use her 2 free turns doing damage instead of spamming her S1. Rather, use her S1 right before she uses her LD, and you should use up all her S1s before you use her 3rd LD use. And that's mainly because on her 3rd LD, I will be using her BT Plus to get her BT Aura. Right here you notice that I did swap Lunafreya temporarily out for Sherlotta, and that's really only to use the Cyan LD call to deal some additional chip damage to help bring Dullahan to 79%. Right after that, you can just use one S1 with Sherlotta to enable her to swap back to Lunafreya. So this is a third LD use, and this is where I pop a BT plus to get the BT aura. The reason why you want to use a BT plus before her final LD is so that her final LD will enable one additional turn of both quick prayer and heavy prayer to Laguna and Cid Highwind himself. One other thing to note while you're dealing damage is that you want to try to focus as much damage as possible on Dullahan. A lot of your attacks are AoE damage anyway, but you actually want to bring Dullahan to 79% before the zombie whale. And by focusing damage on Dullahan, eventually you will start to do like a 1 to 2% health gap between the two bosses, and that is ideal. Coming to Laguna's turn, I had him use the Kurasame LD call on Dullahan. Like I said, the Kurasame call is really optional. The one important thing about Laguna is that you want to keep very close eye on Dullahan's HP percentage. You want to use Laguna to bring Dullahan to 80% exactly. Now it might seem a little bit tight, but it's actually not too difficult. With the 4 turns here, what you can do is play around with his skills. Dullahan is at 81%, so what I do actually here is to spam shotgun on the zombie whale instead, because shotgun is single target damage. So here I'm just waiting for the Desperado to bring Dullahan to 80% health. Right here I swapped him out for Iroha. I did not use the Ashe LD call because I was afraid that that call might bring Dullahan to 79%, so I just went straight into FR. You want Iroha's FR to bring Dullahan to 79%, that is the ideal outcome. Anyway, at 79%, Dullahan will use Absolute Zero to try and inflict paralysis on your party, but because he's been inflicted with the Raijin call, Absolute Zero will miss. At this point, you will be on Cid Highwind's turn, and before starting his turn, what you want is to swap him out for Sherlotta and spam her S1 until there's exactly 4 turns of force time remaining. Now this is why it's very important to bring Dullahan to 79%, because at 80% and above, Dullahan freezes your breath gains, and while that effect is in play, you will not be able to get the plus 103% as you see here. So if you're wondering why you're not getting 103% bonus, that's because Dullahan is still 80% and above. You also want to make sure that Zombie Whale is above 79%, because if Zombie Whale hits 79% here, all your healing will deal damage to your party and you'll be taking quite a bit of damage. At 4 turns of force time remaining, swap Sherlotta back to Cid Highwind and pop Summon. The 4 turns are essentially Prishe LD call, and I use the Prishe LD call on the zombie whale instead. And you follow this up with 3 Cid EX. I almost managed to complete the fight with the 3 EX alone. Unfortunately, Dullahan survived with 1% health, but that isn't an issue because you should have 2 more turns of summon remaining to finish off Dullahan. Anyway, that's it for this run. As always, I hope the video has been helpful, and if you enjoy the content, do leave a like, comment and subscribe, as it really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next Shinryu fight. Bye!